Sarah Thompson had built a life of quiet simplicity. Her small cottage in a coastal town in Maine overlooked the gray Atlantic waves, which crashed against the cliffs below in a rhythm that matched the slow beat of her daily routine. For 18 years she had hidden from her past, a past filled with bravery, danger, and loss. She had been one of the youngest women ever to join the Navy SEALs, a part of an elite team known for impossible missions and unbreakable camaraderie. But a single mission years ago had gone terribly wrong, and Sarah had left that life behind, covering her arms with long sleeves to hide the tattoos that told a story she no longer wished to remember. The tattoos were simple, but meaningful, a set of symbols representing her SEAL team and the missions they had completed together. To others they would seem like mere ink, but to Sarah they were reminders of nights spent in frozen waters, deserts filled with danger, and the friends who had become like family. She often stared at her arms in private, thinking about what she had lost and what she had survived. Every morning, Sarah walked along the rocky beach, her boots crunching against the stones, her coat pulled tight against the wind. She liked the solitude, the sound of the waves, and the quiet town where everyone knew everyone else. The townspeople knew her as the gentle librarian, a woman who loved children's books and old novels. They did not know of her military past, and she preferred it that way. Some memories were too heavy to share, too dangerous to even mention. Her days were filled with calm routines. She opened the library at 9, arranged the shelves, and welcomed children with warm smiles. She helped a young boy find a book about ships and adventures and showed a girl how to properly care for her new library card. The children's laughter and questions brought her joy, but they also reminded her of what she had left behind: the adrenaline, the danger, the purpose. Evenings were the hardest. She would sit by her fireplace with a cup of tea, staring at the flames and letting her mind wander back to the past. She thought of her SEAL team, Daniel, her mentor and friend, Maria, who had always made her laugh, and Thomas, whose quiet strength had guided her through missions she still remembered in vivid detail. But those days were gone, or at least she told herself they were. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, Sarah felt a familiar itch in her arms. The hidden tattoos beneath her sleeves seemed to hum beneath her skin. She had not felt that in years. A wave of memories washed over her. The freezing water of the Arctic during a night operation, the sound of helicopters overhead, and the smell of sand and gunpowder in distant deserts. She sighed and looked away, taking a deep breath. She had promised herself she would never return to that life. She had promised she would stay hidden. Sarah's evenings were often spent writing letters she would never send. She wrote to Daniel, to Maria, to Thomas, telling them about the quiet life she had built, about the peace she found in small things. She poured her heart onto the paper, describing the sunsets over the Atlantic, the children who brought her laughter, and the fear she still carried silently. Then each letter went into a drawer, unread and unsent. It was safer this way. On a rainy Wednesday afternoon, the library was quiet. The windows fogged as the cold wind pressed against the glass. Sarah was shelving a stack of returned books when her phone buzzed on the counter. The screen read unknown. She frowned. Unknown calls were rare in her small town, and she usually ignored them. But something made her pause. Something deep inside her stirred. A memory of voices she had not heard in nearly 2 decades. "Hello?" she answered cautiously, her voice steady despite the sudden flutter in her chest. "Sarah Thompson?" a deep, calm voice asked. Her heart skipped a beat. The voice was familiar, commanding yet kind, the kind of voice that carried authority and trust. "Yes, this is she," Sarah said, her hand trembling slightly. "This is Commander Harris." "We need you back," the voice said. "It's urgent. The mission, it requires someone with your skills. Can you come in?" Sarah's mind froze. She hadn't spoken to anyone from the SEAL team in years. She remembered the missions, the danger, and the lives lost. She remembered the mission that had changed everything, the one that had forced her to leave. And now, after 18 years, they were calling her back. She looked down at her arms, hidden beneath her sleeves, and touched the tattoos she had covered all these years. The symbols seemed to pulse beneath her skin as if calling her forward, reminding her that she was still Sarah Thompson, still a SEAL at heart. I don't know," she whispered, though the voice on the other end could not hear her hesitation. "It's been 18 years. I'm retired." I'm living a quiet life now. I understand, Commander Harris said, but the situation is critical. Only you have the experience we need. We wouldn't ask if it weren't necessary. Sarah's chest tightened. Memories of her team's faces flashed before her eyes. Daniel's determined look, Maria's quick smile, Thomas's calm presence. Could she abandon the life she had built? Could she step back into a world of danger, where every choice could mean life or death? And yet, the call stirred something she had buried deep inside her. The desire to serve, the need to be part of something bigger than herself, the pull of duty that never truly left her. That night, she sat by the fireplace, her tea long forgotten. She stared at her arms and slowly rolled up her sleeves, revealing the intricate tattoos that had been hidden for so long. The ink told the story of her life as a SEAL, the missions, the camaraderie, the courage, and the pain. For the first time in 18 years, she allowed herself to remember. Tears filled her eyes as she traced the lines of the tattoos, thinking of the friends she had lost and the life she had left behind. She felt a mixture of fear and longing, a storm of emotions she could no longer ignore. The quiet life she had built suddenly felt fragile, temporary, as if the waves outside her window had whispered a message she could no longer deny. Some parts of yourself can never truly be hidden. By morning, Sarah had made her decision. She packed a small bag, careful not to disturb the peaceful order of her cottage. She left a note for the librarian next door, explaining she would be away on personal matters. As she locked the door and stepped outside, the wind whipped around her, salty and cold, reminding her of missions long past. She took one last look at the town that had been her sanctuary. The children, the waves, the quiet streets, it all felt like a lifetime away. And yet she felt a spark of excitement, a thrill she had not felt in years. The impossible mission awaited her, and for the first time in nearly 2 decades, Sarah Thompson felt alive in a way she hadn't since her SEAL days. The taxi that would take her to the airport arrived, and she climbed in, her tattoos hidden once again beneath her sleeves. But this time, they were not just symbols of her past. They were reminders of who she was, who she had been, and the strength she carried within. She was ready to face whatever came next, to answer the call, and to reunite with the team she had once called family. 18 years of hiding could not erase her courage. 18 years could not dim her resolve. And 18 years later, Sarah Thompson was about to prove that even the quietest lives could still hold heroes. The plane soared above the Atlantic, cutting through clouds that glowed soft gray under the morning sun. Sarah Thompson sat by the window, staring at the endless stretch of blue water below, her mind spinning. It had been 18 years since she had last flown on a mission for the SEALs. 18 years since she had touched the life she once knew. And yet the phone call from Commander Harris lingered in her mind like a distant echo, pulling her forward into a world she thought she had left behind. She had spent the flight replaying every memory of her time in the SEALs. She remembered the rigorous training, the endless hours of preparation, and the intense missions that tested every ounce of skill, strength, and courage she possessed. She remembered the team, the people who had been her family in the most impossible circumstances. Daniel, her mentor, had taught her to trust herself even when everything around her fell apart. Maria had reminded her to laugh, even in the most dangerous moments. Thomas had been the anchor, calm and steady when chaos surrounded them. She had not seen or spoken to them in nearly 2 decades, and the thought of facing them again filled her with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The plane landed in Virginia, where the SEAL headquarters awaited her. The taxi ride to the base was quiet, the city passing by like a blurred painting. Sarah's heart raced with every passing mile. She had prepared for physical fitness over the past few weeks, but nothing could have prepared her for the emotional weight of returning. As she approached the base, the familiar smell of metal, oil, and disciplined energy filled her senses, triggering memories she had tried to bury. Commander Harris greeted her personally at the entrance. His posture was straight, his expression calm but serious. "Sarah," he said, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming." Sarah shook his hand, feeling the strength and certainty that had always defined the SEALs. It's been a long time," she said softly. "I know," Commander Harris replied. "But the mission is critical. You are the only one with the experience and knowledge to succeed. Your team is ready to brief you." Inside the base, Sarah felt a sense of awe mixed with apprehension. She had not walked these halls in years, yet everything felt familiar. The structured corridors, the weight of responsibility in every room, the quiet determination in the officers' eyes. She was led to a briefing room where the team waited. When the door opened, her heart skipped a beat. Daniel, Maria, and Thomas were there, unchanged in ways that mattered. Daniel's strong jaw and steady eyes met hers, and she felt a rush of memories. Missions shared, dangers faced, and the bond that had never truly faded. Maria's smile, just as bright as ever, made Sarah's chest tighten with emotion. Thomas, calm and reassuring, gave her a slight nod, a silent acknowledgement of the years lost and the mission ahead. "Sarah," Daniel said, his voice firm but warm. "We weren't sure you'd come." I wasn't sure either," she admitted, glancing at each of them. 18 years is a long time. I thought I had left this life behind." "You didn't leave," Maria said softly. "It was never really behind you. You've carried it with you, whether you realized it or not." The room fell silent for a moment as Sarah processed their words. She had tried to live a normal life, but the truth was undeniable. She was still a SEAL, still trained, still capable. And now, that life was calling her back. Commander Harris stepped forward, laying out the details of the mission. "This is not a routine operation. Intelligence indicates that a critical situation is unfolding overseas. Hostages are involved, and the team that went in initially has been compromised. We need someone who knows how to operate under pressure, someone who can think quickly, someone who can lead and adapt. That someone is you, Sarah." Sarah listened intently, her mind analyzing every detail. The mission was dangerous, far more dangerous than anything she had faced in her quiet life in Maine. Yet, as she heard the briefing, a familiar fire ignited within her. The part of her that had thrived in impossible circumstances stirred, reminding her that fear did not define her. Courage did. Thomas stepped forward, his calm voice steadying her nerves. "You don't have to do this alone. We've trained for years and we trust you. If anyone can handle this, it's you." Sarah felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. Trust, camaraderie, the word she had longed to hear for 18 years. She realized that although she had hidden her past, her heart had never let go. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility and the pull of duty. "I'll do it," she said finally, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside her. "Tell me what I need to do." The team spent hours in the briefing room, mapping out the mission with precision. Sarah absorbed every detail, asked questions, and offered insights that reminded everyone why she had been one of the youngest SEALs to succeed. Each strategy, each plan, each scenario brought her closer to the team she had missed for nearly 2 decades. As the evening approached, the team prepared to deploy. Sarah was assigned to lead the reconnaissance phase, a task that required both skill and courage. She packed her gear carefully, checking and double-checking every item, every tool, every weapon. Memories of past missions guided her hands, and she realized that muscle memory and instinct had not faded, even after 18 years. Before leaving, Daniel pulled her aside. "Sarah," he said quietly, "I know this mission will be dangerous, but remember we're here. We've got your back, just like always." She nodded, feeling a lump in her throat. "I know. Thank you." Maria hugged her briefly, and Thomas offered a reassuring smile. Sarah felt a warmth she hadn't realized she had missed so deeply. The bonds of friendship, trust, and teamwork were alive and unbroken even after 18 years. The helicopter waited outside, engines humming and ready for departure. Sarah climbed in, taking her seat beside Daniel. As the rotors began to spin, lifting them into the sky, she felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. The world below shrank, and the horizon expanded, a symbol of the mission ahead. As they flew over forests, rivers, and cities, Sarah allowed herself to reflect on the journey that had led her here. She had spent years hiding, fearing the past, fearing failure, fearing the pain that had once defined her life. And now she realized that hiding had not freed her, it had only delayed the inevitable. Courage, duty, and friendship were not things that could be buried. They lived inside her, waiting for the moment she would need them most. Hours later, the team landed in a remote location near the mission site. Darkness had fallen and the stars glittered above, cold and distant. Sarah felt the familiar tension of a mission, her senses heightened, every muscle ready. She checked her equipment one last time, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The mission briefing continued on the ground. Sarah's mind worked quickly, analyzing routes, enemy positions, and potential hazards. The team moved with silent precision, each step calculated, each glance meaningful. Communication was minimal but effective, a language born from years of training and trust. During a short pause, Sarah looked at her hands, noticing the faint outline of her hidden tattoos beneath her sleeves. She smiled faintly, feeling a sense of continuity. Her past and present were converging, and she was ready to face whatever came next. That night, as they prepared for the first phase of the mission, Sarah realized something important. Hiding for 18 years had been her choice, but returning now was her calling. She had faced fear before, and she would face it again. She had known loss, and she had survived. And now, with her team beside her, she felt a strength she had not realized she still possessed. The impossible mission awaited. But Sarah Thompson was no longer just a librarian in Maine. She was a SEAL, a leader and a woman who had faced her past and chosen to confront the future. The helicopter lifted them into the night, carrying them toward uncertainty, danger, and the chance to prove once more that courage, skill, and loyalty were not things that faded with time. They were eternal. As the wind whipped against the helicopter, Sarah allowed herself a single thought. 18 years may have passed, but I am ready. I have always been ready. The night was dark, the sky a deep starless black, broken only by the faint glow of the helicopter's instruments. Sarah Thompson tightened the straps on her gear, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility pressing against her shoulders. The team had been briefed thoroughly, but the uncertainty of the terrain and the unknown dangers ahead kept everyone alert. Every sense was heightened, every movement precise. Daniel, sitting beside her, glanced at her. "Stay sharp," he said quietly. "The first phase is always the hardest. We need your eyes and instincts more than ever." "I know," Sarah replied, her voice calm but firm. Inside, her heart pounded with anticipation. The quiet years in Maine seemed like a distant memory, a different life entirely. Now every instinct she had honed during her SEAL training surged to the surface, preparing her for the mission ahead. The helicopter descended into a remote, rugged area near the coastline of a foreign country. Dense forest stretched as far as the eye could see, the shadows moving like silent predators. The mission involved rescuing hostages from a group of well-armed captors, a situation delicate and dangerous. The SEAL team's reconnaissance indicated that the hostiles were experienced and heavily armed, making stealth their only option. As the helicopter touched down on a rocky clearing, the team disembarked silently. Sarah's boots crunched softly against the ground, blending with the gentle sound of waves crashing in the distance. The wind carried a salty, earthy scent, reminding her of the Maine coast she had left behind. Yet this place felt foreign and full of uncertainty. The team split into smaller units to move closer to the target location. Sarah took the lead for the reconnaissance phase, moving carefully through the shadows. Her eyes scanned the terrain, noting every hill, tree, and structure that could serve as cover or danger. 18 years had passed, but her training had never left her. Muscle memory guided her movements, and her instincts were sharper than ever. As they approached the perimeter of the enemy's encampment, Sarah signaled for a halt. She knelt behind a boulder, assessing the situation. The hostiles were patrolling, unaware of the team's presence. From her vantage point, she could see the faint outline of the building where the hostages were held. Every detail mattered. She noted the guards' positions, their routines, and the possible entry points. Daniel joined her quietly. "You see anything unusual?" he asked. Sarah shook her head. "Everything looks as expected. The building is isolated and the patrols are predictable. We have a small window to get in unnoticed." Maria and Thomas arrived, and the team held a brief discussion in whispers. Each SEAL trusted Sarah's assessment, knowing her experience and instincts were critical. She felt a surge of pride and reassurance. After 18 years of hiding, she was needed again, and she could contribute meaningfully to the mission. The team moved closer, using trees and terrain as cover. Sarah led the way, signaling silently, guiding the others with precision. The tension was palpable. Every sound could mean discovery. Every shadow could hide danger. They approached the building, a sturdy structure surrounded by guards and watchtowers. Sarah's mind calculated the risks, the timing, and the best route to avoid detection. They reached a point near the building where they could observe without being seen. Sarah crouched low, signaling the team to stop. She could hear faint voices from inside, the anxious murmurs of the hostages. Her heart ached at the thought of the fear they must feel. This was the reason she had returned, to protect, to serve, and to bring people back to safety. "Here's the plan," Sarah whispered. "Thomas and I will take the south entrance. Maria will cover the north. Daniel, you stay here and monitor the perimeter. Once we're inside, we'll secure the hostages and signal the extraction team." The team nodded, trusting her judgment completely. The bond they had formed years ago had not faded. It was as strong as ever. Even after 18 years, they moved as one, silent and precise, a single unit working toward the same goal. Sarah and Thomas moved forward, sticking to the shadows, avoiding patrols, and using the terrain to their advantage. Every step was calculated, every movement deliberate. As they approached the south entrance, Sarah signaled Thomas to stop. She could see 2 guards outside chatting casually. Timing would be everything. Sarah waited, her breath steady, counting the seconds. When the guards turned their backs, she moved swiftly and silently, taking them down with practiced efficiency. Thomas followed, neutralizing the second guard. The team moved inside, careful not to alert anyone else. Inside, the building was dimly lit, filled with the tense energy of captives and captors. Sarah's heart raced, but her focus was unbreakable. She scanned the room, spotting the hostages huddled together in fear. She signaled to the others, and the team began securing the hostages quietly, keeping them calm and moving them toward the exit. Suddenly, a door creaked, and a guard appeared, weapon raised. Sarah reacted instantly, using her training to disarm him without causing unnecessary harm. Thomas covered her, and within seconds the threat was neutralized. The hostages were confused but unharmed, and Sarah reassured them in a calm, firm voice. "You're safe now. Follow us and we'll get you out." As they moved through the building, Sarah's mind remained alert. Every sound, every shadow, every movement was analyzed. She knew that one mistake could endanger the mission and everyone involved. The adrenaline coursed through her, a familiar companion she had missed for 18 years. Outside, Maria and Daniel kept watch, signaling when the coast was clear. The team moved the hostages toward the extraction point, navigating the rugged terrain and avoiding patrols. Sarah felt a sense of fulfillment she had not experienced in years. This was what she was trained for, what she was meant to do. Courage, skill, and teamwork converged in the moment, proving that her past had not been erased by time. Halfway to the extraction point, a sudden noise made the team freeze. A patrol had discovered them. Sarah quickly assessed the situation, signaling the hostages to stay low. She and Thomas engaged the patrol, using non-lethal techniques to neutralize them while keeping the hostages safe. Maria and Daniel moved to secure the perimeter, ensuring no additional threats approached. After tense moments that felt like hours, the immediate danger passed. The team reached the extraction point where a helicopter awaited. The hostages were safely loaded, and Sarah followed, feeling the relief wash over her. The mission was not complete, but the first phase had succeeded without casualties. As the helicopter lifted off, Sarah looked down at the building they had left behind. She thought of the fear in the hostages' eyes, the danger they had faced, and the skill and courage that had allowed them to succeed. She felt a deep sense of pride and purpose. 18 years of hiding had not diminished her abilities. If anything, the distance had given her perspective, patience, and resolve. The team debriefed on the flight back to the base. Commander Harris listened intently as Sarah detailed the movements, threats, and observations. Her analysis was precise, thorough, and insightful, earning nods of approval from both the commander and her team. "You did exceptionally well, Sarah," Daniel said quietly. "I knew you would. It's like you never left." Sarah smiled faintly, feeling a warmth she had missed for years. "It feels good to be needed," she admitted. "I didn't realize how much I missed this until now." Maria reached over and squeezed her shoulder. "You're back where you belong. We've always known you'd come through." Thomas gave a rare smile, his calm presence offering reassurance. 18 years didn't change the fact that you're one of the best. And tonight proved it. As the helicopter landed back at the base, Sarah felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. The mission was far from over, but she had faced her first challenge and succeeded. She had returned to the life she had tried to hide from, and she realized that courage, skill, and loyalty could never truly fade. Later that night, Sarah sat alone in her quarters, reflecting on the day's events. She thought about the hostages, the danger and the teamwork that had made the mission possible. She touched her tattoos, hidden beneath her sleeves, and allowed herself to remember the past without fear or regret. The past was not something to hide. It was something to carry with pride. 18 years of quiet living had been her choice, but returning to her team and to the mission was her destiny. She understood now that her courage had never left her, that her skills had remained sharp, and that her heart had always been loyal to the call of duty. As sleep finally claimed her, Sarah felt a deep sense of peace mixed with anticipation. The impossible mission still lay ahead, and the challenges would only grow more dangerous. But for the first time in nearly 2 decades, she felt fully alive, fully prepared, and fully herself. The journey was far from over, but Sarah Thompson had proven that even after years of hiding, true courage could never be erased. The sun had barely begun to rise when Sarah Thompson awoke, her mind already racing with the day ahead. Sleep had been light and fleeting, filled with dreams of past missions and the team she had not seen in 18 years. Every muscle in her body ached from the previous day's operation, but the fatigue did not weaken her resolve. If anything, it sharpened her focus. The briefing room buzzed with activity as the team gathered for the next stage of the mission. The hostages they had rescued were safe for now, but the larger operation, the elimination of the threat and the dismantling of the captors' network, remained unfinished. Commander Harris stood at the front of the room, a digital map illuminating the wall behind him. "Today," he began, "we move deeper into the mission zone. Intelligence confirms that the captors are regrouping. We must act quickly before they relocate or harm the remaining hostages in nearby regions. This phase is more dangerous than the first, but we have the advantage: preparation, experience, and skill. Sarah, you'll coordinate reconnaissance and lead the team on the ground." Sarah nodded, absorbing every word. The responsibility was immense, but she felt a familiar surge of determination. Every mission she had undertaken as a SEAL had prepared her for moments like this, and she had 18 years of wisdom gained from living quietly and reflecting on the past. Daniel approached her quietly. "This is the hardest part," he said, his voice low. "The enemy knows we are close and they will be prepared for resistance." "Stay alert." "I will," Sarah replied firmly. "We have trained for this. We can do it." The team moved out in a convoy of unmarked vehicles traveling through rough terrain toward the heart of the mission zone. Forests, hills, and small villages passed by in blurred scenery, each mile heightening the tension. Sarah sat in the lead vehicle, reviewing maps and satellite images on her tablet. She noted checkpoints, potential ambush spots, and escape routes. Every decision mattered. Any miscalculation could put the team and innocent lives at risk. As they approached the first checkpoint, Sarah signaled the vehicles to slow. They moved cautiously, scanning the surroundings for any sign of danger. A patrol appeared ahead, moving unpredictably along the road. Sarah quickly calculated the safest approach. "Take the side trail," she whispered to the driver. "Avoid the main road. We don't want them to see us." The driver nodded, maneuvering the vehicle off the paved road and onto a narrow dirt path. The tires kicked up dust and small stones, but the team remained silent, alert and ready. Every second felt like an eternity as they passed the patrol without being noticed. Sarah's hands were steady, her mind focused. Years of training had taught her that patience and precision were as powerful as weapons. Hours passed as they moved deeper into enemy territory. The sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows across the uneven ground. The team finally reached the outskirts of the primary target area, a series of interconnected buildings hidden within a dense forest. Satellite imagery had only provided a rough layout, and Sarah knew that moving carefully would be essential. She gathered the team in a small clearing, crouching low behind a cluster of rocks. "We split into 2 units," she said quietly. "Daniel, you take the east side with Thomas. Maria and I will approach from the west." Communication remained silent unless necessary. Stealth is critical. Our objective: locate any remaining hostages, gather intelligence on the captors' operations, and prepare for extraction. The team nodded, a silent understanding passing between them. Years of shared experience allowed them to move as one, without unnecessary words or hesitation. As Sarah and Maria moved toward the western side, the forest became denser, the shadows deeper. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping twig made them pause. Sarah's senses were on high alert, scanning for movement, listening for voices, and observing patterns. They reached a clearing near a heavily guarded compound, hidden by tall trees and camouflage netting. 2 guards, Sarah whispered, pointing. They're stationary but alert. We need to neutralize them quietly. Maria nodded. Sarah moved forward with careful precision, her training guiding every step. She reached the nearest guard, silently disabling him before he could react. Maria covered the second guard, and within moments the path was clear. The team slipped into the compound, moving toward the building where intelligence suggested additional hostages were being held. Inside, the air was thick with tension. The captors were aware of intruders in the area and had fortified the interior. Sarah led the team cautiously, her heart racing but her mind calm. They moved from room to room, checking corners, ensuring no one was left behind. They found a group of hostages in a small room, scared but unharmed. Sarah's voice was firm but gentle as she reassured them. You're safe now, she said. Follow us quietly, and we'll get you out. Suddenly, a shout echoed from the hall outside. Another patrol had discovered them. Sarah signaled the team to take defensive positions. Maria covered the hallway while Sarah moved to protect the hostages. Thomas and Daniel engaged the intruders, their movements precise and controlled. The firefight was tense but brief. The team's skill and coordination allowed them to neutralize the threat without harm to the hostages. Sarah's mind remained sharp, anticipating every move, ensuring the safety of everyone. When the hallway fell silent, she took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and adrenaline. Everyone okay? She asked, glancing at the hostages. They nodded, eyes wide but trusting. Sarah smiled faintly, offering reassurance. Good, stay close. We're almost at extraction. The team moved swiftly through the compound, gathering vital intelligence and preparing for extraction. Sarah's mind calculated the safest route back to the perimeter, avoiding patrols and hazards. She led the hostages carefully, maintaining calm and order. Every step was deliberate, every movement intentional. As they neared the perimeter, another challenge emerged. A group of captors had positioned themselves near the extraction point, blocking the only safe path. Sarah quickly assessed the situation. There was no time for hesitation. A confrontation was inevitable. Stay low, she whispered to the hostages. We'll handle this. The team moved as one, engaging the captors with precision and strategy. Sarah led the charge, her movements swift and decisive. Every action was calculated to minimize risk while ensuring effectiveness. The captors were overwhelmed by the team's skill and coordination. Within moments, the area was secure, and the path to extraction was clear. The helicopter arrived shortly after, lifting the team and hostages out of danger. Sarah looked down at the compound below, knowing that their presence had disrupted the captors' plans and saved lives. The mission was not fully complete, but significant progress had been made. During the flight back to base, Sarah allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. 18 years had passed since she had last led a mission, and yet the skills, courage, and instincts she had honed as a SEAL remained intact. The quiet life in Maine had given her time to reflect, to heal, and to grow stronger in ways she hadn't realized. Now returning to the team and facing danger, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Daniel sat beside her, observing her quietly. You were incredible out there, he said softly. I knew you'd handle it, but seeing it again, it reminds me why we trusted you so much. Sarah smiled faintly, feeling warmth in her chest. It feels good to be back, she admitted. To be doing what I was meant to do. Maria reached over and squeezed her shoulder. You've always belonged here, she said. 18 years didn't change that. Thomas nodded in agreement. Your courage hasn't faded, Sarah. You led us perfectly. The hostages are safe because of you. That night, back at base, Sarah sat alone in her quarters, exhausted but alert. She reviewed every detail of the day's mission, noting what worked, what needed improvement, and what intelligence could guide the next phase. Her mind was sharp despite fatigue, every thought focused on preparation and strategy. She thought about the hostages, their fear and relief, and the captors who had underestimated the team's skill. She thought about the team, the trust they shared, and the bond that had never truly faded even after 18 years. She touched her hidden tattoos, feeling the connection to her past, her identity, and the courage that had guided her through life and missions alike. Sarah realized something profound. Hiding for 18 years had protected her from pain, but it had also kept her from fully living. Returning to the team, to the mission, and to the purpose she had once known reminded her that courage, skill, and loyalty were eternal. The quiet life had taught her patience, reflection, and resilience, but facing the mission had awakened her true self once again. As she finally drifted to sleep, Sarah knew the next phase of the mission would be even more challenging. The captors would regroup and new threats would arise. But she was ready. 18 years of experience, reflection, and hidden strength had prepared her for this moment. She had returned not just to the mission but to the life she was meant to lead. And for the first time in nearly 2 decades, Sarah Thompson felt whole, alive, and ready for whatever lay ahead. The sun had barely risen when Sarah Thompson and her SEAL team gathered for the next phase of the mission. The previous day had been successful, but the danger was far from over. The captors had regrouped, and intelligence suggested they were fortifying their positions and preparing for resistance. Every member of the team knew that the coming hours would test their skill, courage, and trust in one another. Sarah studied the maps and intelligence reports on the table in the briefing room. Her eyes traced the paths, entry points, and possible traps. "We need to move carefully," she said, her voice calm but firm. "The enemy will expect us. We need to anticipate their actions and stay one step ahead. Our goal is to secure the remaining hostages and dismantle their operations, but we cannot afford mistakes." Daniel, her longtime mentor, nodded. "Agreed, this is where experience counts. Sarah, you lead the approach. We'll follow your signal." Maria and Thomas prepared their gear, checking weapons, communications, and tactical tools. The air was tense but disciplined, the team moving like a single organism, synchronized and focused. Sarah felt a familiar rush of adrenaline, her instincts returning fully to the present. The convoy moved through rough terrain, avoiding main roads and patrols. Sarah guided them using satellite data and her knowledge of tactical strategy. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant calls of birds, the crunch of stones under tires, was analyzed. Nothing was accidental, and everything could signal danger. As they approached the mission zone, the terrain became steeper and more treacherous. A dense forest surrounded a series of small buildings where the hostages were believed to be held. Sarah signaled for the vehicles to stop and assessed the perimeter from a ridge above. She counted the guards, noted patrol patterns, and identified potential hazards. "We split into 2 teams," she whispered. "Daniel and Thomas will approach from the north, creating a diversion if needed. Maria and I will approach from the south. Focus on securing hostages and neutralizing threats quietly. Extraction will be coordinated once the perimeter is clear." "Timing is everything." The team nodded, moving with precision and silent determination. Sarah and Maria descended into the southern approach, careful not to make any sound that could alert the captors. Every step was calculated, each movement deliberate. Sarah's mind worked quickly, processing threats, analyzing risks, and predicting enemy actions. As they reached the first building, Sarah signaled to stop. 2 guards stood near the entrance, chatting and unaware of the approaching team. Sarah held her hand up and Maria crouched low, waiting for the right moment. Timing and patience were critical. When the guards shifted, Sarah moved forward, silently neutralizing the first guard with a swift, controlled motion. Maria covered the second, ensuring both threats were neutralized without alerting anyone else. The path was clear and they slipped inside the building. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. The hostages were kept in a room with reinforced doors guarded closely. Sarah motioned for Maria to cover the hallway while she carefully approached the room. She observed the guards' movements, noting patterns and vulnerabilities. With a swift, decisive action, she neutralized the guards at the door, opening the way for the hostages to escape. "Stay close," she whispered to the hostages. "We'll get you out safely. Trust us." The hostages, frightened but obedient, followed closely as Sarah led them through narrow hallways, avoiding patrolling guards. Every step was a balance between speed and caution, every decision a matter of life or death. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. A hidden sensor had been triggered, alerting nearby captors. Sarah froze, quickly analyzing the situation. "We have to move faster," she said. "Thomas and Daniel will cover the rear. Follow me quietly but swiftly." The team adjusted their movements, increasing speed while maintaining silence where possible. They navigated through the building, using shadows, corners, and low cover to avoid detection. Sarah's heart pounded, but her mind remained clear. She had trained for moments like this, and she trusted her instincts completely. As they approached the perimeter, a sudden confrontation emerged. A larger group of captors blocked the exit, armed and ready. Sarah quickly assessed options. Fighting them head-on would risk the hostages' safety. A direct diversion was necessary. She signaled Daniel and Thomas, who positioned themselves strategically to draw attention. Sarah and Maria guided the hostages through a hidden side path, moving quickly, yet cautiously. Bullets ricocheted nearby and the sound of shouting filled the air. The team remained calm, coordinated, and precise. Sarah's leadership kept everyone focused and moving efficiently. Finally, they reached an open clearing where a helicopter waited for extraction. The hostages climbed aboard, eyes wide with relief, their fear giving way to hope. Sarah and Maria followed, ensuring that everyone made it safely. The helicopter lifted off, leaving the compound and captors behind. Sarah looked down at the buildings below, noting the destruction and disruption their team had caused. The mission was not yet over, but significant progress had been made. Lives had been saved and the captors' operations had been disrupted. During the flight back to base, Sarah allowed herself a moment of reflection. 18 years had passed since she had left the SEALs, but her skills, instincts, and courage had never diminished. The quiet life in Maine had given her patience and perspective, but this mission reminded her of her true calling. She was meant to lead, protect, and serve. Daniel sat beside her, his expression calm but proud. "You handled that perfectly," he said quietly. "Even after all these years, you're still one of the best. The team wouldn't have succeeded without you." Sarah smiled faintly, feeling a warmth in her chest she hadn't experienced in years. "It feels good to be back," she admitted. "To be doing what I'm meant to do." Maria reached over and squeezed her shoulder. "You've always belonged here," she said. 18 years didn't change that." Thomas nodded in agreement. "Your courage hasn't faded, Sarah. You led us perfectly. The hostages are safe because of you." The team debriefed at the base, going over every detail, every movement, and every decision. Commander Harris praised their coordination and efficiency, emphasizing the critical role Sarah had played. Her leadership, insight, and experience had guided the team through one of the most dangerous phases of the mission. Later that evening, Sarah returned to her quarters, exhausted but alert. She reviewed the day's events, noting intelligence, threats, and strategies for the next phase. Every detail mattered. She thought about the hostages, their fear and relief, and the captors who had underestimated the team's skill. She touched her hidden tattoos, feeling the connection to her past, her identity, and the courage that had guided her through life and missions alike. As night fell, Sarah allowed herself a quiet moment of reflection. 18 years of hiding had protected her from pain, but it had also kept her from living fully. Returning to the team and facing danger reminded her that courage, skill, and loyalty were eternal. The quiet life had taught her patience and resilience, but confronting the mission awakened her true self once again. She knew the next phase of the mission would be even more dangerous. The captors would regroup and new threats would arise, but she was ready. 18 years of experience, reflection, and hidden strength had prepared her for this moment. She had returned not just to the mission, but to the life she was meant to lead. As sleep finally claimed her, Sarah knew that the coming hours would test every skill, every decision, and every ounce of courage she possessed. But she also knew this. She was no longer alone, she was no longer hiding, and she was no longer afraid. The impossible mission awaited, and Sarah Thompson was ready to face it, fully alive, fully aware, and fully herself. The morning air was cool and still as Sarah Thompson prepared for the final phase of the mission. The previous days had tested the team in ways that pushed them to the edge, but every challenge had been overcome with skill, courage, and trust. The remaining captors were regrouping in a fortified compound several miles away, and this last operation would require every ounce of strategy, precision, and bravery. Sarah studied the maps one last time, tracing the routes and noting possible hazards. Every detail mattered. A single mistake could endanger the hostages or the team. Daniel, Maria, and Thomas stood beside her, ready to follow her lead. The bond they shared, strengthened over years of missions and renewed by the events of the past days, gave her confidence. She was no longer the young recruit she had been 18 years ago. She was a leader, seasoned and prepared, and her instincts were sharp as ever. "This is it," Daniel said, his voice calm but resolute. "We move carefully, we move together, and we complete this mission. Are you ready?" Sarah nodded. "We've come this far. We're ready. Stay alert, stay close, and trust each other. The convoy of unmarked vehicles rolled through the rugged terrain, moving quietly toward the fortified compound. The team communicated with hand signals and brief whispers, their movements synchronized like a single unit. Every tree, rock, and shadow was observed, every step calculated to avoid detection. The tension in the air was palpable, but the team's focus never wavered. As they approached the perimeter, Sarah signaled the convoy to halt. From a small ridge, she observed the compound, tall walls reinforced with steel, watchtowers and armed guards patrolling the grounds. It was the most heavily fortified target they had faced so far. Her heart raced, but her mind remained clear. Years of training and experience guided her decisions. "We split into 2 teams," Sarah whispered. "Daniel and Thomas will approach from the north to create a diversion. Maria and I will take the south entrance. We neutralize threats quietly where possible, secure the hostages, and signal extraction once the area is safe. Timing is everything." The team nodded, their eyes meeting hers with trust and determination. They moved carefully, keeping low and using the terrain as cover. Every step was deliberate, every movement precise. Sarah led Maria along the southern edge, analyzing patrol patterns and planning the most efficient route. When they reached the first guard post, Sarah signaled to stop. 2 guards were stationed outside, alert but distracted. She counted the seconds, waiting for the perfect moment. When the opportunity came, she moved swiftly, her movements precise and controlled, neutralizing the first guard silently. Maria followed, covering the second guard, and the path was clear. The team slipped inside the compound, moving quietly through shadowed corridors. Sarah's heart pounded, but her focus was unbreakable. They reached the room where the hostages were held. Inside, fear and hope mingled in their eyes. Sarah knelt down, her voice calm and reassuring. "You're safe now," she said. "Follow us quietly and we'll get you out." The hostages obeyed, their relief palpable. Sarah led them through the corridors, avoiding patrolling captors while Maria covered their rear. Every moment was critical, every decision vital. A single misstep could jeopardize the mission. Suddenly, a guard appeared from a side room, weapon raised. Sarah reacted instantly, using her training to neutralize him without causing unnecessary harm. Maria covered her, ensuring the threat was eliminated. The team pressed forward, moving efficiently and quietly. Meanwhile, Daniel and Thomas executed the diversion flawlessly. Explosions and gunfire drew the captors' attention to the northern side of the compound, allowing Sarah and Maria to move the hostages safely toward the extraction point. The coordination, timing, and trust among the team were impeccable. The final obstacle appeared just before the extraction point, a heavily armed group blocking the path. Sarah quickly assessed the situation. There was no room for error, no option for hesitation. She signaled the team, and they engaged the captors with precision and strategy. Bullets flew, but the team remained calm, disciplined, and coordinated. Sarah led the charge, ensuring the hostages remained protected. Within moments, the area was secure. The hostages, shaken but unharmed, were guided to the helicopter waiting at the perimeter. Sarah followed closely, checking that everyone made it safely. The team had succeeded in neutralizing the captors, securing the hostages, and dismantling the compound's operations. As the helicopter lifted off, Sarah looked down at the compound below. The mission was complete. Lives had been saved and the threat had been eliminated. Relief washed over her, but she also felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude. 18 years of hiding, 18 years of reflection and quiet living had led her back to this moment. Courage, skill, and loyalty had never left her. They had simply waited for the right time to be needed. Back at the base, the team debriefed thoroughly. Commander Harris praised their work, emphasizing the critical role Sarah had played. Her leadership, insight, and courage had guided the team through one of the most dangerous and complex operations they had faced. "You did exceptionally well, Sarah," Commander Harris said. "Your experience and judgment were key to the mission's success. The hostages owe their lives to you." Sarah nodded, feeling a mixture of humility and pride. "It was a team effort," she said softly. "We all did this together." Daniel approached her afterward, placing a hand on her shoulder. 18 years didn't change anything, he said. "You led us perfectly. You've always been one of the best." "Welcome back, Sarah." Maria smiled, her eyes glistening. "It feels like old times," she said. "We've missed you and now you're here again. We've faced everything together and we'll always have each other." Thomas nodded in agreement. "You never stopped being a SEAL, Sarah. 18 years away and you still led us flawlessly. That's remarkable. That night, Sarah sat alone in her quarters, exhausted but fulfilled. She reflected on the journey, the quiet years, the call back to action, the challenges and the triumphs. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and the weight of responsibility, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more confident than ever. Her thoughts turned to the hostages, their fear and relief, and the lives she had helped save. She thought of her team, the trust and bonds that had endured through years of separation and countless missions. And she thought of herself, Sarah Thompson, the SEAL, the leader, the woman who had hidden her courage but had never lost it. She touched the tattoos hidden beneath her sleeves, the symbols of her past, her courage, and her identity. For 18 years she had hidden them, believing it would protect her. But now she realized that they were not just marks of the past. They were reminders of who she was, who she had been, and the strength she carried within. The mission had tested every skill, every instinct, and every ounce of courage. But Sarah had proven that time, distance, and quiet living had not diminished her. If anything, the years had made her stronger, more reflective, and more determined. As she lay down to rest, Sarah allowed herself a moment of gratitude. She was grateful for the quiet years that had taught her patience and resilience. She was grateful for the team that had welcomed her back without hesitation. And she was grateful for the courage that had never left her, even when she thought she had buried it. In the following days, the team continued to secure intelligence, dismantle remaining threats, and ensure that the region was safe. Sarah worked closely with them, providing guidance, strategy, and leadership. The bond between the team members grew stronger, each mission reaffirming their trust and loyalty. Finally, after weeks of intense operations, the mission concluded. The hostages were safe, the captors defeated, and the team had achieved what once seemed impossible. Sarah stood with Daniel, Maria, and Thomas looking out at the horizon. The sun was rising, casting golden light over the base. It was a new beginning, not just for the mission, but for them all. Daniel turned to her, a rare smile on his face. "You've come back full circle," he said. "From hiding for 18 years to leading us through the impossible. You've reminded all of us what courage and dedication truly mean." Maria added, "You've proven that strength isn't lost even with time. It waits for the moment you need it most." "And Sarah, you've shown us that moment." Thomas nodded quietly. "We've faced danger, uncertainty, and fear together, and we've come through it stronger than ever. That's because of you." Sarah felt a wave of emotion, a mixture of pride, relief, and gratitude. She had returned to a life she had once left behind, faced challenges she never thought she would confront again, and emerged victorious. The journey had not been easy, but it had reminded her of who she truly was. As she finally removed her sleeves, revealing the SEAL tattoos she had hidden for so long, Sarah smiled. They were no longer just symbols of the past. They were a testament to her strength, resilience, and courage. They were proof that even after 18 years she could rise to the occasion, face impossible challenges, and succeed. The mission was complete. Lives had been saved, danger eliminated, and the impossible achieved. But more importantly, Sarah Thompson had reclaimed her courage, her identity, and her purpose. She was no longer hiding, no longer running from her past. She was a SEAL, a leader, and a woman who had faced the impossible and had triumphed.